The October rain drummed against the windows of my downtown Seattle apartment as I put the finishing touches on what could be the biggest presentation of my career. At 28, I'd spent the last 3 years grinding as a junior marketing strategist at Thompson & Associates, watching colleagues get promoted while I remained stuck in the same cubicle. But tonight was different. Tonight I had something that could change everything. EcoTrack. I whispered to myself, reviewing the slides one more time. The sustainability app concept had consumed my life for the past 6 months. Every evening, after work, every weekend, every spare moment had been dedicated to researching, developing, and perfecting this idea. The app would help small businesses track their carbon footprint in real time, offering personalized recommendations to reduce environmental impact while saving money on operational costs. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Don't forget about Sunday dinner. Your brother's flying in from Portland. He's so excited to see everyone. 6 p.m. sharp. I smiled despite my exhaustion. Marcus was 3 years older and had always been the golden child. Harvard. MBA. Successful consultant. The works. But for once, I felt like I had something that would make the family proud. Something that was entirely mine. Sunday arrived with crisp autumn air and the smell of Mom's famous pot roast wafting through the craftsman-style house in Bellevue where I grew up. The maple trees in the front yard had turned brilliant shades of orange and red, creating a picture-perfect suburban scene. "Is my baby boy?" Mom wrapped me in one of her signature bear hugs as I walked through the front door. At 55, Linda Chen Morrison still had the energy of someone half her age, her silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a practical ponytail as she bustled around the kitchen. "Smells incredible in here," I said, hanging my jacket on the antique coat rack Dad had restored last spring. The familiar warmth of home enveloped me, family photos covering every surface. The old piano in the corner where Marcus and I had suffered through childhood lessons, and the comfortable chaos that only comes from 30 years of family life. Marcus strode in like he owned the place, which in many ways he always had. Tall, confident, with the kind of easy charm that made people gravitate toward him instantly. His expensive suit hung perfectly on his frame, and his smile could sell ice to Eskimos. "Hey, Marcus," I accepted his backslapping hug, noting how his cologne probably costs more than my monthly coffee budget. "How's Portland treating you? Can't complain. Just closed a deal with Nike that's going to keep me busy for the next 6 months." He loosened his tie and surveyed the familiar surroundings with satisfaction. "God, I've missed this place." We gathered around the dining room table as Mom brought out dish after dish, pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh rolls, and the apple pie that had won 3 consecutive ribbons at the county fair. The conversation flowed naturally, covering everything from Dad's latest woodworking project to Mom's volunteer work at the animal shelter. "So, David," Marcus said between bites, "still pushing paper at that marketing firm?" I bristled slightly at his dismissive tone, but kept my voice level. "Actually, I've been developing something that could be really big. A sustainability app for small businesses." Marcus's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Sustainability app." "Yeah, it's called EcoTrack. The idea is to help small businesses monitor their carbon footprint in real time and get personalized recommendations for reducing environmental impact while saving money." I could feel my excitement building as I described the concept. The market research shows there's a huge gap in affordable sustainability solutions for businesses that can't afford enterprise-level consulting. I noticed Marcus listening intently, his consultant's mind clearly processing every word. Mom and Dad were beaming with pride, asking thoughtful questions about implementation and potential customers. "The timing is perfect," I continued. "With all the new environmental regulations and consumer demand for sustainable practices, small businesses are desperate for accessible tools. But everything on the market is either too expensive or too complicated for the average restaurant owner or retail shop." "That's brilliant, honey," Mom said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "You've always been so creative and thoughtful about these things." Dad nodded approvingly. "Sounds like there's a real need for something like that. How long have you been working on it?" "About 6 months of serious development. Got market research, user personas, a full business plan, even mock-ups of the SE user interface." I could see Marcus processing this information, his expression unreadable. I'm planning to pitch it to my boss next week. The conversation moved on to other topics, but I noticed Marcus seemed distracted for the rest of the evening. When he offered to help with dishes, something he'd never done voluntarily in his life, I knew something was up. No. About this EcoTrack thing, he said casually as we loaded the dishwasher. Sounds like you've really thought it through. It's been consuming my life, I admitted, but in a good way. I really think this could be the thing that gets me out of junior level hell. Marcus nodded thoughtfully.
I work with a lot
of businesses through my consulting. Maybe I could help you get some feedback or even find potential investors. That would be amazing, I said, genuinely touched. I'd love to get your perspective. Why don't you email me what you've got? I'll take a look and see if I have any contacts who might be interested. That night I compiled everything into a comprehensive package: the business plan, market research, financial projections, user interface mock-ups, even my notes from customer interviews I'd conducted with local business owners. I wanted Marcus to see that this wasn't just a pipe dream, but a thoroughly researched and viable business opportunity. Subject: EcoTrack. Full business plan and materials, I typed, attaching nearly 50 pages of documentation. Thanks for offering to take a look at this. Your feedback would mean the world to me. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. and went to bed with a smile on my face, completely unaware that I had just made the biggest mistake of my professional life. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my cubicle at Thompson & Associates, nervously rehearsing my EcoTrack pitch for the 100th time. The PowerPoint was loaded, my notes were organized, and I'd practiced in the mirror until I could deliver the presentation in my sleep. David, conference room 3 in 5 minutes, called Janet, Mr. Thompson's assistant. He's ready for your presentation. I grabbed my materials and walked toward the glass-walled conference room, my heart pounding with anticipation. This was the moment I'd been working toward for months. Mr. Thompson was already seated at the head of the polished mahogany table. His reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed something on his laptop. At 62, Harold Thompson was a legend in the Pacific Northwest marketing world. David, good to see you, he said without looking up. Have a seat. I'm just finishing up some emails. I settled into the chair across from him, arranging my materials nervously. This was the moment I'd been working toward for months. Actually, before we begin, Mr. Thompson said, finally looking up with an expression I couldn't quite read, I want to discuss something that came to my attention yesterday. My stomach dropped. I received a very interesting call from Marcus Morrison, your brother, correct? Yes, sir. He was a consultant in Portland. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Indeed. He reached out because he heard through the grapevine that you might be presenting a sustainability app concept today. Mr. Thompson leaned back in his chair, studying my face carefully. He wanted to give me some context about an idea he's been developing. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. I'm sorry, what? Marcus shared a fascinating concept called EcoTrack, a sustainability platform for small businesses. He mentioned that you two had discussed it over dinner recently, and he was concerned you might have misunderstood his sharing of the idea as permission to present it yourself. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Mr. Thompson, I think there's been a misunderstanding. EcoTrack is my idea. I've been developing it for 6 months. That's not what your brother suggested. Provided quite detailed documentation. Business plans, market research, user interface mock-ups. He even had records of customer interviews he'd conducted. Mr. Thompson's tone remained neutral, but his eyes were sharp. He was very gracious about it, actually. I said he understood how family discussions could lead to confusion. My hands began to shake. Sir, those are my documents. I sent them to Marcus 3 weeks ago, asking for his feedback. David, I've been in this business for 30 years. I've seen every kind of intellectual property dispute imaginable. Mr. Thompson closed his laptop with a soft click. What I don't see very often is someone trying to claim credit for their siblings' work. A collaborative approach. I felt like I was drowning in confusion. Marcus suggested that Thompson & Associates partner with his consulting firm to develop EcoTrack. He'd handle the business development and client relationships. While you could contribute to the marketing strategy under his guidance, I sat there. In stunned silence, my mind racing. How had Marcus done this? How had he taken my idea, my research, my 6 months of work, and presented it as his own, so convincingly? "Why don't you take the rest of the day to think about this?" Mr. Thompson suggested. "Perhaps you and Marcus can work out the details of collaboration privately." I walked back to my cubicle in a daze. The EcoTrack folder on my desk, 6 months of hope and hard work, now seemed like evidence of my own naivete. My phone buzzed with a text message. From Marcus. "Hey, little brother. Heard you had a meeting with your boss today. Hope it went well. Let's talk tonight." The casualness of his tone, the fake concern, the complete absence of any acknowledgement of what he'd done, it was breathtaking in its audacity. That evening, Marcus called. "David, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day." His voice carried that familiar tone of big brother concern. "I heard about your meeting with Mr. Thompson. We need to talk." "You heard about my meeting?" I kept my voice carefully neutral. "Actually called him yesterday. Wanted to discuss a potential partnership opportunity involving EcoTrack." There was a pause. "Look, I know this might seem complicated, but I think we can work something out that benefits everyone." Complicated. I repeated the word slowly. "That's an interesting way to describe stealing your brother's idea." "David, that's not fair. We discussed EcoTrack together. It was a collaborative conversation." His voice took on the reasonable, slightly condescending tone he'd used when explaining things to me as kids. "I've been working on sustainability consulting for months. The app concept was a natural evolution of ideas we'd both been exploring. Ideas I'd been exploring for 6 months before our dinner conversation. Come on, little brother. You know how these things work in business. Ideas evolve through discussion and collaboration. What matters now is making sure EcoTrack gets developed properly, with the right resources and expertise." I closed my eyes, trying to process the sheer audacity of what he was proposing. Not only had he stolen my idea, but now he was offering to let me be a junior partner in developing my own creation. "What do you need from me?" I asked quietly. "I need you to trust me on this. I need you to understand that this is bigger than either of us individually." His voice carried a subtle threat wrapped in brotherly affection. "Mr. Thompson seems to think there might be some confusion about the origins of EcoTrack. We should clarify that together as a family." I understood the implicit message. Go along with his version of events, or face a legal battle I couldn't win. "I need time to think about this," I said finally. "Of course, but don't take too long. Thompson and Associates wants to move quickly on this opportunity." His tone brightened artificially. "David, this could be the break we've both been looking for." After he hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about trust and family and the way success can corrupt even the people you love most. Marcus had always been the golden child, the one who got everything easily. But this time, he'd taken something that wasn't his as I finally headed to bed. One thought crystallized in my mind. Marcus might have stolen my idea, but he'd made one critical mistake. In his arrogance, he'd assumed I would simply roll over and accept his version of events. He'd forgotten that beneath my quiet exterior was the same competitive drive that ran in our family. I might not have his connections or his Harvard MBA, but I had something he'd apparently forgotten about. I had the truth. And more importantly, I had the receipts to prove it. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. While Marcus slept peacefully in his Portland apartment, confident in his successful theft, I was already at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a legal pad, beginning to build the case that would destroy his lie. First, I needed to understand exactly what I was up against. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything I could remember about our family dinner conversation, writing down every word exchanged about EcoTrack as precisely as possible. Next, I began gathering evidence. My development process had been thorough and well documented, but I'd never imagined needing to prove ownership of my own idea. Thank God for my obsessive backup habits and my tendency to timestamp everything. I started with my browser history. October 15th, 2023, my first Google search for small business sustainability solutions. The search continued for weeks. carbon footprint tracking apps, environmental impact measurement tools, SMB sustainability market research, page after page of searches, all months before my dinner with Marcus. My email history told an even clearer story. October 18th, my first message to Dr. Sarah Chen at the University of Washington's Environmental Business Lab, asking about academic research on sustainability adoption among small businesses. October 22nd, correspondence with 3 different app development companies, requesting quotes for prototype development. November 1st, my first customer interview with Janet Wilson, owner of Mosaic Caf. I had it all. Emails, calendar, appointments, browser history, document creation, timestamps, even receipts from the 5 sustainability conferences I'd attended to research the market. The digital trail was incontrovertible. I called in sick to work and spent the day creating a comprehensive timeline of EcoTrack's development. Every email, every document, every conversation, organized chronologically with supporting evidence. By the time I finished, I had a 20-page document that told the complete story of my idea's creation and development. That evening, my phone rang. Marcus again. David, we need to meet. Can you come to Portland this weekend? I can't this weekend, I lied. I'm busy with work. This is work, little brother. It's our future we're talking about. His voice carried a hint of impatience. Look, Thompson and Associates is ready to move forward. We need to be aligned before that happens. What exactly do you need me to say? Just that we developed EcoTrack together? That it was a family collaboration that evolved through our discussions? He paused. David, I know you're upset, but you need to understand the bigger picture here. I have the connections to make this idea successful. And if I don't agree to this partnership, the silence stretched uncomfortably long. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice had lost its warm, brotherly tone. Then we have a problem. Because EcoTrack is moving forward with or without your cooperation. Thompson and Associates has already seen the business plan and market research. They know who brought the idea to them. Another pause. I'd hate for this too turn into a family dispute that damages both our careers. There it was, the threat I'd been waiting for. Marcus was making it clear that he was prepared to destroy my reputation rather than admit the truth. I understand, I said quietly. Let me think about it over the weekend. I spent the weekend refining my documentation and preparing for every possible scenario. I researched intellectual property law, studied case precedents for idea theft, even consulted with a lawyer friend from college. Your evidence is strong, admitted Jake Reeves as we met for coffee. Digital timestamps don't lie, and your development timeline is incredibly detailed. But family disputes are messy, and your brother sounds like he's prepared for a fight. What are my options? Honestly, your best bet might be to outmaneuver him strategically. If he's counting on you being the accommodating little brother, maybe. It's time to surprise him. That night, I made my decision. I would attend the partnership meeting Marcus had arranged, but not as the cooperative younger brother he was expecting. I would come armed with evidence and prepared to destroy his narrative in front of the very people he was trying to impress. Monday morning. I walked into Thompson and Associates with my head held high for the first time in weeks. David, Mr. Thompson called as I passed his office. Perfect timing. Marcus is flying in this afternoon for our partnership discussion. We're meeting at 3 o'clock. Yes, sir. I've given it a great deal of thought. I met his eyes steadily, looking forward to the meeting. The final confrontation was about to begin, and this time I was ready. I entered the conference room with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. Marcus stood to greet me with his characteristic charm, extending his hand as if nothing had changed between us. David, great to see you, little brother. His smile was perfect, warm, confident, slightly condescending, excited about what we're going to accomplish together. I'm sure you are, I replied, taking the seat across from him. Mr. Thompson was arranging documents at the head of the table, preparing for what he believed would be a straightforward partnership discussion. Gentlemen, I'm pleased we can resolve this collaboration so amicably. Mr. Thompson began. Marcus, why don't you walk us through your vision for EcoTrack's development? Marcus launched into a polished presentation that I had to admit was masterful. He spoke about market opportunities, customer pain points, implementation strategies, all of it pulled directly from my research, but delivered with the confidence of someone who'd been consulting Fortune 500 companies for years. The beauty of EcoTrack, he explained, gesturing to slides that featured my user interface mock-ups, is that it addresses a genuine need in the small business market. Through my consulting work, I've seen countless companies struggling with sustainability compliance. He was good. I had to give him that. But as he spoke, I noticed something interesting. While he clearly understood the market opportunity, he was vague about the technical implementation details, knew what the app should accomplish, but not how it would actually work. The customer discovery process has been particularly enlightening, Marcus continued. I've conducted interviews with over a dozen small business owners, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. That was my opening. Marcus, that's interesting, I interjected casually. Could you tell us about your conversation with Janet Wilson at Mosaic Caf? I'd love to hear your perspective on her specific challenges. For just a moment, his polished facade cracked. Janet Wilson. Yes, the owner of Mosaic Caf on Capitol Hill. You mentioned conducting customer interviews, so I assumed you'd spoken. With her, I kept my voice conversational. She had some fascinating insights about the disconnect between sustainability goals and operational reality. Marcus recovered quickly, but I saw the flash of uncertainty in his eyes. Of course, yes. Janet was very helpful. Her feedback was quite valuable. Absolutely. Especially her point about needing real-time alerts when waste levels exceed optimal thresholds. I was making this up, but Marcus had no way of knowing that. Did she mention her concerns about staff training requirements? Staff training? Yes. That's definitely something we'll need to address. Marcus was clearly fishing. He's trying to sound knowledgeable about a conversation he'd never had. Mr. Thompson was watching this exchange with growing interest. I could see him beginning to question the narrative he'd been presented. To hear your thoughts on this partnership proposal, Mr. Thompson said after Marcus finished. This was it. The moment I'd been preparing for since the day Marcus stole my idea. Actually, Mr. Thompson, before we discuss partnership terms, I think there's something you should see. I opened my laptop and connected it to the conference room display. I've prepared some documentation that might provide helpful context. Marcus's expression tightened. David, I don't think. Please let me just show you a few things. I clicked to my first slide. A timeline of EcoTrack's development, starting 6 months before our family dinner. This is the complete development history of EcoTrack, with timestamps and supporting documentation. I walked them through my evidence methodically. Browser search histories showing my research beginning in October. Email correspondence with university researchers dated weeks before I'd even spoken to Marcus about the idea. Calendar entries for customer interviews, including the actual conversation with Janet Wilson that Marcus had clearly never heard of. Here's the original business plan, I continued, displaying a document with a creation timestamp of November 15th. And here's the market research I conducted at 5 different sustainability conferences. Mr. Thompson was studying the screen intently, his expression growing more serious with each piece of evidence. Marcus had gone very still, his consultant's poker face firmly in place. This is the customer interview schedule, I continued, showing a detailed calendar of meetings with local business owners. Janet Wilson, November 8th. Mike Chen, at Dragon Garden Restaurant. November 12th. Sarah Martinez at Eco-Friendly Cleaners. November 18th. I looked directly at Marcus. Do you like me to call any of them right now? Silence in the room was deafening. Mr. Thompson was reading through the documentation with careful attention. Marcus was staring at the screen, his jaw tight with barely controlled frustration. David, Marcus finally spoke, his voice carefully modulated. This is all very impressive documentation, but it doesn't change the fact that we developed the core concept together during our family discussion. You're absolutely right, I agreed. Ideas do evolve through collaboration, but they also have origins, and the origin of EcoTrack is very well documented. I clicked to my next slide, email timestamps, showing my correspondence with app developers. Dated weeks before our dinner, here's my initial outreach to development companies for EcoTrack prototypes. November 22nd. I continued building my case layer by layer, the development notes with timestamps, research files with creation dates, even my credit card statements showing payments for sustainability conference tickets and market research tools. The thing is, Marcus, I said, my voice still calm and professional. When you steal someone's idea, you need to steal all the supporting work too. But you can't retroactively create a 6-month development history. You can't fake customer interviews. You never conducted. You certainly can't alter the digital timestamps that prove when this work was actually done. Marcus's composure finally cracked. This is ridiculous. We're family, David. We discussed this idea together. You're turning a collaborative conversation into some kind of conspiracy. We discussed my idea together, I corrected. My idea that I'd been developing for months before our dinner. My idea that I was excited to share with my big brother because I trusted him. I felt my voice getting stronger. My idea that you stole 3 weeks later when you thought I'd be too intimidated to fight back. Mr. Thompson closed his laptop and looked directly at Marcus. I have to say, the documentation David has presented is quite compelling. The timeline is very clear, and the supporting evidence is extensive. Harold, you have to understand, Marcus began, but Mr. Thompson held up a hand. What I understand is that I was presented with a business proposal under false pretenses. The evidence suggests that EcoTrack was conceived, researched, and developed by David, not by you. Marcus's face had gone pale. I could see him running through options, trying to find a way to salvage the situation. But there was no spin skilled enough to overcome the mountain of evidence I'd presented. Furthermore, Mr. Thompson continued, Thompson & Associates has strict policies about intellectual property and ethical business practices. We cannot partner with a firm that misrepresents the origins of its proposals. The meeting ended with Marcus leaving in stunned silence and Mr. Thompson asking me to stay behind. David, I owe you an apology, he said once Marcus had left. Should have verified the claims more thoroughly before accepting them at face value. Thank you, sir. I understand it was a complicated situation. I'd like to schedule a proper presentation for EcoTrack next week. Based on what I've seen today, this could be exactly the kind of innovative thinking Thompson & Associates needs. 6 months later, EcoTrack launched as Thompson & Associates' flagship sustainability product. The app exceeded all revenue projections and won 3 industry awards for innovation. Marcus and I haven't spoken since that day in the conference room, but I heard through family channels that his consulting firm lost several major contracts when word spread about the intellectual property incident. Mom still hosts Sunday dinners, but they're quieter now. Sometimes the cost of standing up for yourself is higher than you expect. But every time I see EcoTrack's growing user base and the genuine impact it's having on small businesses, sustainability efforts, I know I made the right choice. Trust, once broken between brothers, may never fully heal. But integrity, once reclaimed, becomes unshakable. And in the end, that proved to be worth more than any family dinner could ever be.